Yeah, I think this just shows you how relatively simple it is to kind of like stitch like different data sources and do all that good stuff that GraphQL can do instead of Hasura. And yeah, I'm super impressed, to be honest. And yeah, I want to build something with this now, with this stuff.
Right? It's like, well, maybe
Yeah,
we could just build a quick fitness app, right?
yeah, yeah. Quit your
No,
day
this,
job, right?
yeah, yeah, right. No, side hustles only, right?
Side
My
hustle. Yeah, okay.
boss, side
Yeah.
hustles only.
And very often those digital experiences need some content, like everything from what you actually see in those services or all the marketing around it and so on. So that's where we come in, right? We specialize in making it easy and even possible to manage that content in a way that makes sense for like a modern organization with modern tooling and all of that stuff. However, there's also a lot of like data, like user data and stuff that really belongs in good old databases like Postgres. That stuff we don't do necessarily. So that's where you get a combo. So whenever you want to like store like user profile data or whatever, like event time series and so on, that's when you need databases that are built for that kind of stuff.
We'll hit save. And then if we go back over to the API here, we run that again, we should see that we've got a sum of 8 now on our boxing. So that's a really great way to be able to now leverage our local data with our remote schema, putting an umbrella of Hasura's permission controls on top of that, and being able to give us now a very powerful, data story to ship to our web developers or our mobile developers to let's say, hey, if you have access to it, put it on the page, however you want to surface this, and be able to now tell part of this story, which is a really powerful way to work. Alrighty, and welcome everybody to another Data and API show. We are so happy to have you joining us again. I hope you are liking this recorded format. I'm hoping it is saving you some time. I mean, you don't get to watch me sweat under the lights as real time anymore, but hopefully you're getting something more valuable out of it. And we are continuing our series here in May with joins, all things joins. We've covered remote schema to database joins. We've talked about architecting. We did the database joins. Sorry. Then we did the remote schema architecting general with joins. Today is remote schema to database, and I am super excited to be joined by Knut. Welcome to Knut from Sanity. Why don't you tell us who you are, what you do, and yeah.
I'm happy to be joining you. I'm sorry. I just had to. Yeah. Hi.
Yeah.
Hi. I'm Knut. I run developer relations for Sanity.io. We make a content platform. I guess we can talk more about that. I guess. But yeah. Hi. Stoked to be here.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I actually content platform is going to be a really great launching off point for us. And we were just talking that we both are in relatively alert and awake stages here. Because a lot of times when I have guests on here, I've got somebody who's either it's really early and it's really late for me, but we're bringing the Eurozone representation here right now. So we got
it. It's almost noon. Like we are at our peak right now, right?
we in so many ways we are at our peak right now.
It's wonderful.
It's very, very true. Yeah, let's talk about this connection, and this is a topic that I actually kind of have a bit of a previous life geek passion about connecting content platforms to things like a database of user owned data. So why don't you kind of explain to us? So I kind of know the jargon, but for our users and our viewers, what's kind of the best or the use case here of why we'd be connecting a content platform to something like Hasura or something like a database, using Hasura to connect these two?
Yeah, all right. Yeah, so basically we are all making like digital experience these days. Like often that's kind of like a website, an app, like something that people are supposed to interact with through browsers or apps or whatnot. And very often those digital experiences need some content, like everything from what you actually see in those services or all the marketing around it and so on. So that's where we come in, right? We specialize in making it easy and even possible to manage that content in a way that makes sense for like a modern organization with modern tooling and all of that stuff. However, there's also a lot of like data, like user data and stuff that really belongs in good old databases like Postgres. That stuff we don't do necessarily. So that's where you get a combo. So whenever you want to like store like user profile data or whatever, like event time series and so on, that's when you need databases that are built for that kind of stuff. So yeah, I guess that's kind of like the rough,
Yeah,
simple way of going about it. Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense, right? Because you've got, and we can talk a bit more even in terms of where that makes sense for the data model that we're connecting today. But basically, you've got a lot of cases where you've got tooling around content collection. Because under the hood, I'm not sure about Sanity, but under the hood, in a lot of cases, it's still being written into databases.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah.
But
We run on two
versioning,
at least. Yeah.
permissions,
Yeah.
roles, editorial flows, all this kind of stuff, right? Like this is requires a company. This requires infrastructure. This requires education and tooling around just the editorial content flow. How do you get marketing and business alignment to sort of be able to review content, stage it, all the stuff around CMS stuff that we would traditionally think about. And I think companies like Sanity, where you have sort of this headless architecture concept where your content's now API driven, not delivering the front end logic, like it is moving to platform level because it's saying, well, hey, we can actually stitch and move all these pieces of your data that's part of your editorial story together into a single API. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So this is kind of like just a realization that, like, as you mentioned, the CMS term, right? Like content management system. Like most content management systems tend to be kind of like a bit stuck in the early 2000s with the idea that, oh, we are kind of like rendering a website and your
Yeah.
content are thought of like inside of all these pages and so on. That's not the reality anymore, right? So as you said, like we need that content to be behind APIs, and not only that, we need it to be kind of like database like or data like. You should be able to query your content, right? You should be able to automate it, to easily augment it with stuff and so on. So that is what we are trying to solve in some different ways. And yeah.
Yeah, that's really great. And again, this is part of the whole story, right? Because so the database side, the Hasura side, developers are used to being able to get access to content programmatically and be able to place it into whether it's React Native right now, Flutter 3 just launched yesterday or 2 days ago. Like there's always going to be a changing front end target or a new solution or some way that customers and users are wanting to engage with your business. And if you've got a CMS that's having to reinvent their front end templating logic or targets every single time, you don't want to hire I want to make sure I don't throw any specific CMS under the bus here, but you don't want to hire X CMS specialist. You want to hire a data model specialist, or you want to hire a React specialist, or you want to hire whatever the code is, or a JavaScript specialist. You want to hire whatever the specific direction from a technology perspective your company's going in, not something the tooling is forcing on you that's housing your data. And then because you're stuck, then you're really stuck for a long term.
Exactly. And God forbid if there's some HTML coming through those APIs, then you'll have a fun time with the Flutter app, right? So it's also about kind of like thinking about how you store your data and how we structure it and all of that stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Why don't you? I'm gonna put your screen on camera on, or your
Yeah.
laptop on camera here. So why don't
Right.
you tell us a little bit about the data model that I actually threw at you, or I gave you the idea, and like minutes later, it felt like you were like, "How's this?" And so that was pretty quick. But how about you give us a rundown of what it is that we're actually looking at today?
Okay, for sure. So now we're looking at like some JavaScript, or I guess it's TypeScript, but it's not a lot of TypeScript there. And a browser
The
window with
file extensions TypeScript.
yeah, that's enough, right? Progressive
Yeah.
disclosure and all of that.
Eventually
Yeah.
TypeScript. Yeah.
Anywho, so what you're looking at is this is kind of like a React single page application. We call it Sanity Studio. This is where your editors will actually kind of like work with content. This is kind of like the human side of the equation. This studio that runs in your browser with no servers are connected to APIs to our hosted, we call it a content lake. Like it's kind of like a schema-less document store that's real time and specialized around the idea of like storing structured content. So you can basically store JSON documents into it. We can patch those JSON documents incrementally. You can query them. You can kind of like reshape them and all of that stuff using, I guess, like this is probably not the place to talk about Grok, but we have a query language for JSON called Grok, and we use that query language to power our GraphQL API. So there you go, because we have that too, right? And that is what we are going to play with today. However, so this studio, you set it up with content types using something we call schemas. So it's pretty similar to kind of like a database modeling exercise. Only it only kind of like generates the form inside of this kind of like application. So it actually isn't synced to the server. The server is schemaless, which is kind of like neat for some reasons and maybe a challenge for other reasons. But that's where we can use Hasura, because that's kind of like schema all the way down, right?
Yeah, I mean, really, yeah. Or
Yeah,
schema
right.
all the way up if you want to think about it in
Yeah,
terms of it being a generated API, right? Because you're
yeah,
starting
for
with
sure.
the schema is telling from the, in this case, from Postgres, it's telling what to do. I
Yeah,
think it's interesting. So you're saying that your resolvers for GraphQL out of Sanity are actually using Grok to process and parse the JSON documents and then surfacing it through GraphQL. That's actually really interesting because it seems to be a part of the narrative we see developing around GraphQL is that it's becoming sort of a unified service language between different systems where it says, well, we can kind of like, we can get this into a format that GraphQL understands and whatever it is, right? So whether it
yeah,
be reading document stores using a tool like Grok, whether it be, parsing CSVs under the hood using whatever scripting language you want to use, some burnt sushi resolvers or whatever. Like you can, that's a thing. I'm not making it up on the spot. It's actually a tool. You can actually get it into a GraphQL way and then actually use some of these gateway like services to be able to stitch these things together. We don't like to call Hasura a gateway, but in a lot of cases with federation and joins, it's performing some of that kind of behavior. But yeah.
yeah. No, for sure. So like to the degree we are opinionated about this stuff, we find that like GraphQL is best when you use it to make your own API, like kind of like you are doing with Hasura, right? Um, so that's why we made Grok, because like I tend to say that Grok is more like SQL for JSON, while GraphQL is more like a replacement for a RESTful API or something. Because you can make a GraphQL API with Grok, but you can't make a Grok API with GraphQL, kind of. Or you could try
Yeah,
it.
well,
Doesn't mean
that's a great way to put
yeah,
it. Grok is
yeah,
is sort of SQL for JSON. That's a great way to describe it,
yeah,
I think, because again, it comes down to GraphQL doesn't care how you resolve the data. It doesn't,
exactly,
and
exactly.
and so if you want to grok your data, then they are
Yeah,
spelled they're spelled differently. So I don't want to throw off SEO there, but then you can use the
pun
tool and do
intended.
that. Pun
Yeah,
intended.
yeah. So Grok is kind of like very free form, very flexible, but you don't always want that flexibility, right? You want the strictness of GraphQL because it creates a lot of predictability and resilience and all of that good stuff that you probably want in a production app. So we are kind of like fans of both, and they have their own uses, right? So yeah.
Just to itch the nerd or scratch the nerd itch. That's very difficult to say somehow. Why invent something like Grok when tools like JQ or something existed?
Have you ever tried to actually use JQ?
So there we've got the answer. No, I have, yeah.
Have you used it without looking up the documentation?
No.
No, like again, we JQ is super cool. Grok is inspired from it, but I think it's easier to use and learn, and it does things that JQ doesn't do. So yeah, there you go. Also, it's fun to invent stuff.
It's fun to invent stuff. Yeah, we would not be real developers if we were not reinventing the wheel at least once a quarter. So
but I also feel I should mention, like, Grok is open source. You can actually go and download Grok.js if you want to like use it in your command line as a JQ replacement. Even the parser compiler that we use to compile the parsers for Grok is open source. So yeah, we're trying to also give back to the community in that way.
Well, we're big fans of open source here. So why don't we look at the actual data model? So you've gotten the types created here, and they're now rendering into sort of these document stores. And now you've got this studio interface. How does this work here? How do we look?
How does it work? Indeed. So there's a bunch of files and folders here, but the only thing we need to care about is like this folder called schemas. It has kind of like this schema.ts file that exports kind of like all the schema stuff to the studio, so it picks it up. Maybe I can also start it locally. And yeah, you mentioned like, let's make a workout or exercise app, and this is a pretty cool use case because it's not obvious. Like, it's not obviously kind of like a website thing with pages and posts and stuff. It's kind of like maybe a lot of you know how our exercise app works, but it tends to be workouts. Workouts tends to kind of like be composed of different exercises, and then you also have the instructors, kind of like the people who are pulling you in and forcing you to do the exercise that you feel you should do, and then you're
that are annoyingly excited
subscription
about it. Yeah,
and all of that stuff, right? So I've made kind of like a super simple version of that, just to kind of show also how you can think about structured content. And this is that. So here we have the workout, and with Sanity, you make these schemas with JavaScript. Like if you squint, it looks like JSON, right? But it's actually JavaScript, and that's interesting because that means you can use JavaScript to also build schemas programmatically, and you can do all sort of stuff. And it really is powerful when you go into field validation and all of those things. So Studio is also made to be super customizable, so you can replace stuff with React components and so on and so forth. But this is pretty much kind of like vanilla schemas with like field names, kind of like data types, and then kind of like what the label in the studio should say. Because you want to control what goes into the API, and you want to control what goes kind of like out to the humans who are actually using this application. So this kind of like JavaScript object creates this form that you can see here. And this is kind of like, this is pretty similar to whatever CMS you are using, right? It's text input fields. And then you can type into them, right? What's a good workout name?
Hitboxing.
Hitboxing. Is that what you are doing?
Double I's. HIIT. High intensity interval training.
Hit. Is that capitalized?
It's all caps. Yeah.
This. Okay. What's cool is that you could actually join the studio and just fix it in real time. Oh, there we go. Yeah. Let's see. Are you in here?
See it.
Yeah, there we are.
Here we go.
There you are.
Nice.
There you are. Right. So while you are checking my spelling, I can also generate a slug. We can talk more about that slug later, I guess. And then we need an instructor. So I guess that's you, right? And then I will just, let's see, I just make your face bigger, like that, and then we just drag. You didn't ask for this.
Did not. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to
Yeah,
add some items here. So we're going to do
there we
left
go.
jab, 30 seconds.
Let's
So
see.
it
Yeah,
takes the name, or doesn't take the name from the field.
now we are working inside of this reference documentation or article document. I'm sorry. So what happens here behind the scenes is that we are kind of like composing a JSON document. So here you can see kind of like this JSON document that's synced real time to the hosted content lake. And what you are doing now is to add references to separate documents. And these can be joined by either Grok or GraphQL, of course. And they are indexed, so you can't delete an exercise that reference to from this workout. So we'll also
Okay.
have that protection, right? So that's pretty neat. Right, cool. And then we can publish it, and then it will be available on the web for everyone to enjoy, I guess, or the
Going.
app or whatever.
Get your
Yeah.
sweat going. Yeah, nice. All right, so we have the data model, and then let's talk a little bit about that slug because we discussed it a little bit previously offline. What's the purpose in this case for the slug, and what are some of our possibilities here of how to use it?
Yeah. So usually what you want when you are consuming this stuff is some kind of like stable identifier, right? So all Sanity documents has this underscore ID that's immutable. You can change it, and you can use that as a reference. That is what's actually used in the reference fields, right? However, sometimes you want that reference to be a more human readable if you want, and that's where
Yeah.
like a slug would be handy. If I don't remember it incorrectly, I also think that Sanity will make sure that this slug is unique, at least across document types. If
Well,
not, that out
that
of the box,
must
it's
be a
easy to add
config,
that.
right? It's
Yeah,
got to be a config for
yeah,
the schema, right? To be able to say it's a unique value. Yeah.
yeah. So that's kind of like the gist of it. And sometimes other systems will have some constraints that makes it easier to use kind of like a slug field and the ID and so on. But yeah.
Can we set that in the schema? I'm guessing when we talk about joining this over to Hasura, with the GraphQL side, it may need to see that as a unique field. Otherwise, the relationship may have a problem.
Ooh.
Is that possible to define it as a unique field?
Is it possible to kind of like tell the GraphQL schema? I'm actually not sure.
Let's find out.
But let me see if we. What do you do when you aren't sure of like how your API works? You go to the
You
documentation,
Google
right?
it and make your SEO people feel like they've got a lot of organic inbound.
Yeah, and this is kind of like putting it to the test. Do we have kind of like a thing? Yeah, we have
Yeah.
a it's unique thing. Interesting.
Okay.
Um, so let's try it. I'm not sure if that propagates to the GraphQL schema. If it doesn't, that's a bug request or something, or is it a feature request? I'm not sure, but that's something
Bugs for
to know.
features.
Yeah. So at least now we have at least told the Stilo that this should be unique. So it isn't kind of like doing that from out of the box. You have to kind of like set this property.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, and now I can maybe kind of like talk about how GraphQL works.
Yeah,
Because
because we
as I
can
said,
inspect it now. We can inspect to see if it became a
yeah.
unique value. Yeah.
So since the content lake is schemaless, we need to kind of like tell some kind of service out there about the schema, right? So the GraphQL API is kind of like tied to the schemas you're writing here. And the way to kind of like go about this is to go into the command line the Sanity command line and hit Sanity GraphQL deploy. So that will kind of compile the GraphQL schema definitions and upload that to our microservice that actually provides the GraphQL API endpoint. So yeah, we want a playground. You always want a playground, right? And now it kind of like generates the thing. It will also watch out for breaking changes and tell you about it. You can also version and tag GraphQL endpoints, so you can have multiple going. Anywho, this is just kind of like the out of the box thing. And here we should be able to query, right? Let's go with the IDs and just trust that. Here we go. There's some documents. Let's go into the schema definition. So workout slug doesn't seem like it's telling it's unique. I guess like we can also see that in Hasura, I guess.
Yeah, we'll find out for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to
Like
Mhm.
like we have a little way to go when it comes to like GraphQL schema customization. We have it on the backlog and working on how we can do it. But yeah, but that Hasra might help us with that. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see what we
Yeah,
can suss out here.
yeah,
Okay, yeah, so let's actually just do that part. Let's
right,
see about how we would actually go and connect it over to the Hasura side. We do have a project open. I'll switch over to my screen here,
right,
and we'll see what we got from that side. So we've got back over to my screen. We've got our running Hasura project. So we just scaffolded out a basic project from the user data side, continuing with our narrative. We've got 3 tables. We've got like a user model. Then we have user exercises, so individual executions of that exercise. We have a user workout, which is then again the individual. These would be like join tables, if you will, between the canonical reference of the workout and the user exercise. So this is what we're going to be trying to connect. And then we have the remote schema that was brought in. And if we look at the, if you were to modify it, you can kind of see the configuration screen. We're able to give it a name. We're able to go ahead and give it the endpoint. And we haven't done this yet. We'll probably try and iterate over this. At the moment, it's an open GraphQL API, but we would be able to also identify any headers if you wanted to pass in an authorization token to be able to say this is a protected connection between these two. And we'd even be able to, and we'll see if we can get around to iterating that far later on, down to permissions here, where we'd be able to see how this content actually works.
very
Now,
cool.
what we're talking about today specifically is remote schema to database joins, where the query logic begins with the editorial content. So we're going to want to see things like how many users have started this workout, what's the previous best time. For me personally, like an authenticated environment for doing this exercise. So that means that we're going to be driving a relationship from the remote schema to my database instead of from my database to my remote schema, which we can do, but we're going to cover that next week. But so we're going to do is we're going to say from this remote schema, how do we add in this additional data? And to do that, we're going to go to the relations tab here. And we're going to say add a new relation. Now we're going to really find out how well our slug field works for us. So we've got the remote schema here. So we're going to go ahead and call this, in our case, we're going to name this one as, we'll call this user workouts, I think. And we're going to say that the source is the remote. Actually, I want to do, this is a remote schema. I'm on the wrong section. Remote schema to remote database is what we want to do here. So this is going to be, instead of to another schema, I want to go to my local database here. And I want to go ahead and call this user workouts. And I'm going to say that it's going to be an array relationship from the remote schema. So the source here is going to be on my workout. So we look down here, we got the workout itself. And then we are going to be selecting from my default database on my public schema. I'm going to go to user workout. And now we're going to map our types here. This is the moment of truth here.
This is also interesting because the slug isn't just a text field, it's an object
It's a
field.
type. Yeah, we're going to see how this works. We got slug.
There we go. Neat.
Does that actually work?
Or can you go into nested fields?
We're going to find out. So it needs to go then to my workout slug, but I don't know if that's going to resolve. Let's see here. What can we do? Because I have a feeling that's not going to work.
Well, let's figure it out.
Let's try it, see what happens here.
We can make it work, yeah.
So it's pretending like it at least understands, but let's go ahead and iterate. What we're going to do is we're going to take one of these workouts and we're going to, so we have on the Sanity side, let's go ahead and have a look at our generated slugs here. So we have the workouts. We're going to look at the hitboxing. We've got this as one type of workout. We've got yoga. We're going to generate that one as well. And we got strength. We're going to generate that one as well. Then you hit publish. There we go. So in theory, all of those slugs should be live. So if I head back over to my my database here to data, and I go to my user workout, I'm going to insert a couple of workouts here. So the workout slug, I want to use hitboxing. User ID is 1, and they're going to have a rating of, we'll call it 3. And let's see if we can go ahead and add that dummy data. And so now, if it's working, what I should be able to do is go from the API browser and be able to check here. So we're going to see what happens if we go from workout. We're going to do all workout in this case, just so we get the different types. We're going to get the name of it, and then we're going to get the user workouts. And this is the moment of truth here, where we're going to see if we actually got anything out of there. I've got a relationship on my user model there, so I'll just get the name of the user. And so here we get the issue. Field slug of type slug must have a selection of subfields. Did you mean slug? So
there you go.
We have the issue. So what we can check here, there's likely a way to do this from the Hasura metadata, where we're able to pass in subfields. I'm trying to think if there's any other clean way. So we can talk about a couple of solutions here. One is, does Sanity have the notion of a computed field where it would just give us a flat value?
Yeah, that usually happens in the query, right? So you would kind of like just map whatever to kind of like a root key or something. So it's not exactly like you would have in a Postgres or something. But what I wonder, could we use the underscore ID?
We can try. I think that the exposed GraphQL, if we look at the all workout here.
Because another thing is we can also just make a super simple text input field.
We can do a super simple text, yeah. So if I go to the all workout, this is where GraphQL is going to yell at us just a little bit if we don't do things the way that it wants. So if we go to the all workout, and we get the workout type there, the ID is of type ID, and I don't have that available underneath generated types for Postgres.
All right.
So I can't mismatch these types here. Yeah.
Let's see. Let's do a quick refactor and just make the slug field a good old text field. Just for the
let's do it. Yeah.
Just to please the demo.
Prove that it works. Yeah. I'm gonna let you actually set that up real quickly while we discuss this. So one of the things here we could do from the Postgres side, we could probably do a computed field that would basically allow us to provide a custom type and then be able to implement the ID scholar that way on a Postgres table. The other solution would be for us to modify the metadata, I'm going to just have a look up here underneath the Hasura docs because I Google my own docs too. So Hasura remote schema. I'm going to do relations. See about doing subfields. That's database to remote. We want to do remote relationship, remote to database to remote schema. I'm just looking here for the. Well, I mean, the concept should be the same. So see if it lists here on the page. Generally, that would be something I would expect to be available then under the metadata. But it's possible that we don't have that. So here, we can create an object. And then from the API, yeah, it's probably possible underneath the metadata here.
Cool.
But so we got the refactor, we've done the plain string fields, right? And so the slug is still there, right?
While you were venturing to the docs, what I did was to replace the slug field with kind of like a good old string field. I redeployed the studio and I redeployed the GraphQL API with the new type. So we have to reload that probably inside of this dashboard. And then I also changed all the 3 documents to update the data. So it's now not living on an object.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we reloaded the remote schema, yeah. And we're going to go back now and check our system here. Does Sanity have a plugin extension framework? Like somebody could basically create a picker essentially that they would be able to. So this would be the other way to do this, right? Is you would be able to create a field. You could potentially have a table that every time you created a workout, it creates inserts a workout table inside of Hasura. And then you'd be able to have a constraint to say, whenever I insert something, it has to exist here. Yeah. So these would be ways to build in some robustness when you need to work with things like string fields as identifiers. This would be one of the approaches. Yeah.
So like you could either kind of like make that like whatever you can do in React, you can do in the studio. So you can like, and we also give you kind of like the APIs to kind of actually patch documents and so on. However, for that use case, I probably would have used serverless functions and a webhook because like, not to talk about Grok again, but we have something called Grok powered webhooks. So you can basically say under these conditions, if this happens in the content lake, send a hook. And a hook can also be any kind of HTTP request and so on. You could probably almost just do it directly from webhooks actually, because you can send a post request to Hasura with whatever shape you want. And yeah, there you go.
How do you have any boilerplate code for firing off a? Do you have any boilerplate code for firing off an event? A REST
we could
request?
probably. We could probably make that pretty quickly.
Something we could. This is just sort of a way to do it, right? So we could come in here to data. We would create sort of our we'll call this the CMS bridge.
Yeah.
We'll create a table called CMS bridge or CMS workout bridge. This is like worst case scenario, right? If you've really got to build something extremely robust, we'll call this the CMS workout bridge. And then we're going to go ahead and give this just a random identifier here, but then we're going to call this the workout slug, which will be a text field. And so now we've got this really basic column here, and this allows us to create a bridge that we're able to use as a constraint for our workout table for our users. So they can't create something that doesn't exist. It has to be a member of this field. So we can create that, and then what we would do from there is we go ahead and say add table, and and this is just to kind of emulate. We're not going to implement the full logic here, but this is just to emulate how you would do it. If we go to the API now and we say something like mutation insert workout slug, and then we would be able to take in a parameterized value here of the actual slug. And then we would say something like insert CMS bridge, workout bridge 1. The object is going to be then the slug value. And then we'll do a conflict here. And then we'll say that update the columns of just the slug. So
Nice.
if it just is a way to say, hey, we can handle cases where it already exists. But here, so in the case of a lot of these serverless functions, a lot of those kind of toolings don't understand GraphQL, right? It's difficult to implement, or just to say, hey, what we can do is we can RESTify this real quick. Yeah. And so we say, please enter a valid name. Okay, I'm going to take this and mutation insert workout slug. It's complaining that I've done something silly, right? Because it has to be a string value. That's a required string value, and it has to be a returned value here. So we just go workout slug. All right, and it's not a required value. It's required. What's it complaining about? Slug needs to be. Oh yeah, duh. It's can't be used here. Okay, so now we're all good. We go and RESTify this. We'll call this the CMS workout bridge. And then this will take a simple post request where we'll pass in then just a slug is the body. And we'll make this be underneath /rest/ bridge workout create. Keep a nice RESTified nomenclature there. All right, so we got that create, and now we'd be able to use this endpoint here, which I'll send over via private chat in our Restream here. That whenever we would create a workout, we could actually fire a slug over into into our CMS. We have to give it the permissions and things, but yeah.
Yeah. I think we can only send JSON-based bodies.
Yeah, that's fine. We can just send a slug. Just a JSON slug will work.
Let's see if I can.
Should I switch over to your screen?
Yeah, probably. Let's see if I can even load. It's so funny because I've been at Sanity for 4 years, so I have a lot of projects. Our managed console is like loading a lot of projects.
Anytime that there's a feature request coming in for how do I create a can we have a search for projects? That's clearly like a DevRel coming in asking for that feature.
Yeah, I'm not even going to attempt going up in this thing. So here we got kind of like the webhook creation inside of the project settings. It needs kind of like a name, the endpoint. I guess we can just get rid of this endpoint whenever this video launches because we are going to reveal it.
Well, and at the moment is we're gonna pass in a header, right? So this is even protected. So it's not even unless you have the variables.
Let's see. Anywho, so we have the concept of data sets. That's kind of like almost as databases. It's kind of like collections of your documents, but we can just put it on all or can just production. And then we can decide when something should trigger. Should it trigger on when we create a document or update it or delete it? I guess we want probably both.
Create and update, yeah.
Yeah. And then we can make kind of like constraints with Grok. So we can decide under which conditions should we fire off a webhook. And I guess this is whenever we touch workout document.
Mhm.
Do we need more constraints than that? Like,
Probably not for this case.
yeah. We can also say, we also have handles we can say, like, if this value was this before and this after, wherever in the JSON document, like do this and so on. So it's pretty flexible. Now we can decide what the payload should be. But should it be actually this?
Just
Like,
slug and then
yeah,
the value you want to pass in.
yeah, yeah. And this is also using Grok, so you can like compose your. We could probably compose the GraphQL mutation thing inside of this as well, but that would be more verbose. So I'm glad we don't have to. And then we have, it's a post request, right?
Post request,
Should we add headers?
And then we'll add the header. What we'll probably do here is just turn off the we'll turn off your screen for a minute. And we'll pass in the secret for it, and then I'll switch back over to my screen here. So
Right.
I mean, everybody should be able to connect the flow here. That it's possible. You have access to the secret from the dashboard, right? Do you have that open or?
Oh yeah, I can.
Otherwise, I can also just go to the API tab here and just copy that. I'm not going to make it visible. I'm just going to.
Oh, you have done this before.
I'm going to maybe just turn off my screen for 1 minute. We're going to grab the secret. I'll paste it over into our chat. And then it's going to be the Hasura admin secret, all sort of hyphenated kebab case. But
let's see. And this will be authorization header, right? Oh
this
no,
will actually be Hasura admin secret.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
And it doesn't need any kind of like bearer stuff. It's just the value, right?
It's just the value, right? Yeah.
And
we could create a role. We could create a role for this. We could create a service level token. We could create a special, case where this would be for doing this. Obviously, it's a bit overkill for the demo we're doing at the moment.
Right.
So yeah, we can get this going. So the idea, while you're getting that set up there, again, what we're doing is we're trying to create a bridge that would allow us to enforce that from our app side. We'd be able to put a constraint on our database to say we have a local reference for inserts, updates, and deletes. We have a local reference table that is a dictionary of all of the workout slugs that will be consistent with my remote source. For a case like this, where we've had to go a little brittle and created a simple string field as our identifier. Again, generally speaking, you probably can have other ways to make this consistent, but this would be a way to do this, is using tools like webhooks to be able to say, hey, we're going to create this bridge between the two that allows us to say, this is how this stays consistent. Yeah.
Yeah. This is like the MVP. We're just making a prototype, right?
Yeah.
To sell it to the board.
I'll put it back. I'll put your screen back on. I mean, and this works, right? This is this methodology is a production grade solution too, like for sure.
Yeah. So I've saved the webhook. We don't know if it actually will work yet. Let's put it to the test. Let's make a new workout document, right? And let's call it cycling. Can I even type?
Isn't it called spinning? Isn't that what all these fitness studios
here
call it? That's easier to
write. Spinning.
And spinning class, right? I think that's what they call it. It's like when you do the stationary bikes.
Mark is doing that. And then we just say, you're on a bike.
you're on a bike.
I don't know. Let's publish it and see what happened in Hasura.
So we got the update. Do you have a way to observe them from your side?
I think we at least we have a temp log. It served it, I think.
I mean, but like if we look over on my screen here,
it's not errored. Let's see.
You can see if you look at my screen here, it worked.
Magic.
First try. It is Friday the 13th when we're recording this, and it worked on the first try. So
we will pay for this later, I'm sure.
there's some like like whatever that is that gets you on Friday the 13th. Just wait, and they're like, yeah. So this is the way that you could do this, right? You could say that this is a way to be able to insert and create a check that you would then be able to do a lookup and say is in select. I mean, we could kind of do it really fast. Let me see here. I'm working on getting better at my SQL. I'm really poor at it. If we go to user workout, we do something like our modify here. We could do a custom check. So our field here is workout slug. Now it might complain that I don't actually have it. Are you able to trigger like updates to all the documents real fast so that it actually writes all of the slugs that we have?
Oh yeah, I can go through
Let's
them.
do that while I try to suzz out this check here. So the check would be basically something on adding a new check. We'll say workout ID is valid. And so the expression here should be something similar to workout ID in, and then it's a select slug, or it's like workout ID from CMS workout bridge, I think. And so have you triggered the updates there?
Yeah, I think so.
So I'm going to just open this up real quick onto the workout bridge into a new tab just to validate that we've got the data before I write the insert. Because it might complain if I've got the hitboxing that's not currently set up. So we go to the data here. So we got spinning, we got yoga, we got strength, we got hitboxing. So everything should be present. Workout slug is what I've called it there. So I've already notified that I've got a problem. So we'll say workout, and I call this one workout slug. So we got to fix this real quick. That'll be one way to remove variance in our. So workout slug in select workout slug from CMS workout bridge, and we'll rename our constraint name. Seer, come on, big money. So it doesn't like the in constraint. So we can do a quick SQL check for constraint. We say, SQL or Postgres SQL check value in select. That should give me somewhere close. Does it have to be? It might have to be in a parent. It might have to be in an array.
Yeah.
It might be. Yeah. So we can go back to there. It's probably just this here. In select from save.
I feel like SQL errors could be more helpful.
Right. Cannot use subquery in check constraint. Okay.
Yeah, you don't say.
Well, this is saying that we can't do this. This is not allowed here. So there would be other ways to make this work in Postgres land and in SQL land and in Hasura land. For now, we're not going to worry about this. One of the ways that comes to mind is we would actually formulate this bridge as a special enum type, and then we would have the values be something that we could do there, because we could say we could use enums from in Hasura as well. You have to shape a table the right way, so you're creating an enum bridge. That would be the last way to make that work. Anyways,
I must say that this is super powerful. By the way, it's super cool that we can do stuff like this.
Yeah, because Hasura enum, just have a look, because it is technically we're actually relatively halfway there. So the way to do it down here, we have to look at the table structure. It's got to be a special format where the role is has to be value is the only insert here. We would have to modify. Actually, we can do that. So it needs to be value is the primary key, and we have an optional comment. So we come back to our table here. we modify the CMS bridge here. I mean, this is way off the tracks for what we were going to be covering today, but I think this is still a powerful way to talk about how you make these relationships be robust. If we go to modify and we change this now, we're going to go ahead and actually delete the column value here. So we're going to go ahead and say delete this column here. So we say, I think it's listed as my primary key. So what I'm going to do is switch now to say here, this is going to be called value. I hit save.
Making sure you're not shooting yourself in the foot, right?
Yeah. All right, so we have it there. What we're going to do now is tell it that the primary key is actually going to be value instead, which is okay. I go ahead and I have a check here again. So we have value is now my primary key, so I should be able to delete the ID now. So we have value here. What we can do now is we can tell that this is an enum. Set table as enum. All right, and we are back. So things went a little bit off the rails because we were getting a little bit too fancy. Mostly I was getting too fancy. What we wanted to do was create then a constraint between these two systems that allows us to say, hey, we're using a brittle mechanism for creating our ID between these two systems, right? We're using string fields, which when you're talking about different systems, different groups of editors, different tools that are writing data into these different systems, you need to find a way to make a constraint there. So what we did is we created a enum table inside of Hasura. We had to do a bunch of refactoring because sometimes things just go that way. But anyways, we created an enum table for this workout bridge. We use that as the constraint to be able to say that every slug that is in my user workout has to be connected to this table inside of the CMS bridge. But what's nice about that is that CMS workout bridge is being updated via a Sanity webhook. So anytime that I am going to be creating a new workout, I am writing that slug over into my Hasura database. So I'm creating a built-in constraint that is going to be allowing for a very robust bridge between these two services. There might be other patterns you want to implement or have a look at, but that is one way that actually is a production-ready, solid approach to be able to actually prevent your users from creating data that doesn't exist or where the relationship would be broken. And we can see that actually working with inside of a Hasura here now. When we do a search here for this whole relationship where we're pairing on that slug, we can actually see that we have the all workouts, we have the user workouts, we have the rating, we have the user, we have the name, and we're able to get that data out the way that we want. Now we're currently fully authenticated. We have no restrictions on this content. If we wanted to actually create this as something that be for like the website maybe and actually hide some of that data, we can go back to the remote schemas. We'll go to app content. We'll go to the relationships, not relations, permissions, and we're going to go ahead and actually allow an anonymous search here. And we're going to say that for anonymous, we're going to allow the workout query here. So we go down not to an input, but to our types. We have workout. And then we have we have to enable this on our root query. So we'll say workouts enabled. And we'll say that all workouts are enabled. And we're going to say that we're going to allow everything except for we're not going to show instructor. We're not going to show the exercises themselves. That's part of the secret mojo that we're trying to
you have to sign up for that,
hide. Right, exactly. And this is basically the other data we're not going to be surfacing to our unauthenticated users. We kind of just get rid of some of this content. From there, what we're able to do then is we're able to save that as just a very minimal access. And then on our Hasura side, we're able to say that the user workouts, because we want to do is actually get the rating. So we go to permissions here. We'll see that I've already enabled that there's only going to be access to the rating and no other information for the anonymous role, allowing aggregates as well. And so if we go back to our API now and we actually fake a unauthenticated user, we'll now see that we have access to data here that we don't like. It's saying, hey, I don't have any idea what you're talking about here. And now this is information where, for example, if we wanted to look for exercises, well, we don't have exercises anymore on this API endpoint because we're totally unauthenticated. And I can be able to get this data where I'd be able to see the actual workouts. We could do things like rating aggregate. So it's a user workout aggregate. And then we could do something like sum aggregate sum. And then I think it's rating like that. So we could actually get the total. And so here there's 0 for the strong workouts, but for boxing there's 3. If I were to insert another bit of data here for our user workout, we'll say that this person is like really into it. And we're going to give this now a rating of 5. And we're going to tell them they have to use the hitboxing again. We'll hit save. And then if we go back over to the API here, we run that again, we should see that we've got a sum of 8 now on our boxing. So that's a really great way to be able to now leverage our local data with our remote schema, putting an umbrella of Hasura's permission controls on top of that, and being able to give us now a very powerful, data story to ship to our web developers or our mobile developers to be able to say, hey, if you have access to it, put it on the page, however you want to surface this, and be able to now tell part of this story, which is a really powerful way to work. Okay,
Super neat.
that's it from my side. Any comments from you, Knut? Well, we did a little bit of an off the rails there for a minute, but yeah, any thoughts from your side?
Yeah, I think this just shows you how relatively simple it is to kind of like stitch like different data sources and do all that good stuff that GraphQL can do instead of Hasura. And yeah, I'm super impressed, to be honest. Yeah, I want to build something with this now. With this stuff.
Right? It's like, well, maybe we could just build a quick fitness app, right?
Quit your day job, right?
yeah, right. No, side hustles only, right?
Side hustles.
My boss,
okay.
side hustles only. Yeah. So no, I mean this is really this is the compelling story about how, like, for one, I really like how Sanity has the code-driven, metadata-driven approach. Hasura obviously has that as well. So you're able to kind of work in two familiar flows of open source, being able to work with this content. Sanity is open source, right?
Yeah. So except the hosted data store, everything
that's
we
the
do
hosted
is
store. Yeah.
But we give it away from free. You can use it for free. There's pay as you go if you use a lot of API stuff. But here we go. You can save those API requests just using Hasura, right?
yeah. Well, we could do. I mean, just for kicks and giggles here, we could just do the cache.
Cache it.
What's the field again? I forget the. They just add cache. What's the primitive here? Okay, I have to look it up again. But we have caching involved.
You have like a cache directive. That's super neat.
Okay, let me just look it up now that we got it. Hasura cache it's only in cloud, but if you go to Hasura caching, then it's cached. Okay, it's with the final. We can cool. go to the API. We'll say all workout. I believe we cache remote schemas too.
Yeah. And I don't remember what endpoint to use, but we also have a cached GraphQL endpoint. And you get way more calls on the CDN, and we even cache post requests and so on. So everything should be, cached, caching all the way.
I think this is complaining about.
I think it was on the kind of like on the named query level. So maybe
is it? Oh, yeah. I think you're right. So because it has to have something to even look up the cached key. So fast workouts.
There we go.
There we go. So first one, maximum allowed is 3,000 seconds. Okay, fine. So first one is going to be the 300. Okay. First one's going to be the caching call, and then you can see that sub requests are super snappy. 689 milliseconds, not bad. All right. Okay. Yeah, this is the story. This is the way to build. The ability to go from offline, the ability to iterate over your schemas. Obviously, Hasura allows this as well. Sanity allows this. Being able to iterate, work with teams, and being able to have the sort of collaborative real-time back and forth. I'm Knut sitting there in Norway. I'm sitting here in Germany. We're being able to work at the same time. And be able to get a highly controlled, like a robust connection from this remote source to our local database, right? We built in a constraint in this amount of time as well, an enum field that's able to be informed from Sanity, that's able to act as our bridge to Hasura data. It's a very powerful way to be able to build these systems together. So remote sources to database, I'll call that checked in terms of what we got accomplished here. But super cool, and really appreciate you coming on and allowing us to have a look at this today. And,
this was very fun.
Yeah,
and like, it's amazing to think about what we have just done. Like, if you have been in web development for a while, like, what happened now? Like, did we do all of this? And no sysadmins involved.
That's true.
I think we still have to remind ourselves of this. Like, this is pretty cool. Yeah.
All right. Hey, everybody, go follow Knut on Twitter. What's your handle?
I have the worst Twitter handle because it's impossible to say. It's KMELVE, Kmelve. Yeah. Google me.
Look up Sanity Knut. You'll find his Twitter handle. You can follow me. I'm Mountain Dev. Follow our companies, Sanity. Follow Hasura, and for sure there'll be. With how well this worked, for sure there's more content coming down the road. So
for sure.
All right.
Right.
Have a great day, everybody. Happy building, and we will see you next time for database to remote schema joins. And we have a pretty fun guest for that one as well. So we'll see you then.
Right on. See ya.